Capitol riot was not a surprise attack. The insurrection should not have caught law enforcement off guard, period. Today, the Senate Homeland Security Committee released a 127-page report which showed Capitol Police's Intelligence Division saw social media posts about the January 6th insurrection as early as mid-December. A December 21st report flagged more than 30 screenshots on a pro-Trump website. One user wrote, "Surround every building with a tunnel, entrance, exit. They better dig all the way to China if they want to escape." Another wrote, "Bring guns. It's now or never." Yet, Capitol Police still didn't seem to anticipate a violent mob, smashing glass or scaling walls. The acting Capitol Police chief told congressional investigators that there was no specific credible threats and that intel was only shared with, quote, command staff and never reached the rest of the department's leadership. In a statement, the chair of the committee, Democrat Senator Gary Peters, said, "The attack was quite frankly planned in plain sight." Forget about storming the Capitol. There is no circumstance under which a mob of Black Lives Matter protesters or a group of Muslim Americans could even take selfies that close to the Capitol without raising some eyebrows. Earlier today, I spoke with former Secretary of Homeland Security Jay Johnson about the report. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being on today. I really appreciate your time.
Charles, pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, so this new Senate report, bipartisan report, is the most comprehensive report we've seen so far on the insurrection. Seems to me to be relatively damning. What is your take on this report?
A couple of things, Charles. One, it's a good job coming from Congress. They did many interviews. They have subpoena power. They were able to interview the acting Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, leaders of the Capitol Police, and so forth. It's not, however, a congressionally mandated, congressionally authorized, nonpartisan, bipartisan commission of a group of distinguished Americans, like, for example, the 9/11 Commission. It reveals, in my judgment, in my experience, some serious lapses in security and intelligence collection and anticipation of a real problem. I've been in charge, when I was Secretary of Homeland Security, of planning security events at the U.S. Capitol that typically involve the president, like a State of the Union address. When a president is involved, when the Secret Service is involved, it's referred to as an NSSE, a National Special Security Event, in which the Secret Service takes over and is in charge. That is a well-organized, well-thought-through, massive security event, and everybody knows who's in charge. This, however, on January 6th was not an NSSE, and one of the questions that has to be asked is why the Capitol Police and the executive branch of our government did not anticipate the need for security at that level.
Yeah, see, that's an issue for me, because I cannot stop it running through my mind that there is no way that a bunch of Muslim Americans demonstrating and giving as many signals ahead of time in correspondence would not have gotten a stronger response, both preemptively to stop something from happening and also a quicker response to stop it while it was in progress. The same, I would guess, would be the case for if these were Black Lives Matter protesters. What is the rationale? What is the reason in your mind that this particular set of people who were giving all the signals that they were going to be violent were not taken seriously as people who could possibly be violent?
Well, I think you have to start at the top, Charles. The groups that converged on Washington and the Capitol that day were Trump supporters. And the president at the time simply would not have and did not view them as a security threat of any time. These are his people, so to speak. Couple that with the fact that you had an acting Secretary of Homeland Security, an acting Attorney General at the time, and an acting Secretary of Defense at the time who were looking at the exits, who were just 2 weeks away from leaving office. And you put those factors together with a failure to read all the obvious tea leaves coming, and you have what was the very definition of an insurrection on our U.S. Capitol. It was a huge tragedy. It could have been avoided. It did not have to happen. I know what it takes to secure the perimeter of the U.S. Capitol, and when you do it correctly, not even a squirrel can get on the grounds without going through a magnetometer.
Is that the reason that there was no formal intelligence report issued prior to this event? I mean, my understanding is that it didn't happen, that the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security regularly produce these reports. They produced one for Portland prior to the protests on George Floyd. They produced one in June with the Black Lives Matter protests in Washington. Why was there not one of these produced for this event?
Let me give you a sense for what it's like in anticipation of a major security event. There's no one intelligence report that we focus on. We should be getting the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, the Capitol Police should be getting weekly, if not daily, intelligence reports of what is converging on Washington, D.C. And a lot of this was right out in the open in social media. And so you get regular daily, hourly, weekly updates about who's coming, what's the size of the group, what organizations are leading these efforts. And in reaction to that, we trigger a certain level of security to secure the grounds. We know how to do this. This was clearly a group of people who were frankly asleep at the switch.
So if the group was asleep at the switch, with whom does the buck stop?
Ultimately, the buck stops with the President of the United States. He is in charge of the security apparatus of the United States government. Let's put the Capitol Police aside, because in most situations like this, the U.S. Secret Service, which is part of the Department of Homeland Security, which is part of the executive branch, which reports to the president, has overall responsibility for the planning of something like this. Whether you're talking about a State of the Union, a speech, let's say, by the Pope to a joint session of Congress, or any number of high security events at the Capitol, usually there's an organization, the Secret Service, that is overall in charge, has overall responsibility for coordinating all these different law enforcement agencies. It takes months in advance, but you can do it quickly if you are able to anticipate that. This event demonstrated all the different cracks in the seams unless you properly plan for something like this.
So this report recommends, I think, 20 new procedure steps, new protocols. This adds to what General Russell Honore has already recommended. Some of these are just procedural things. Other things cost money. How likely do you think that these reforms will make it through this Congress?
That's a good question. I'm not convinced that a whole lot of reform is even necessary. If we know what's coming, we know how to protect against it. If you anticipate an insurrection on the U.S. Capitol, an angry mob converging on the U.S. Capitol, you can secure the perimeter. We know how to do this. I don't believe it's necessary.
But they do need fortifications, is that right? You do believe that they need more fortifications,
I was just getting to that, yes. I don't believe it's necessary to create a whole other layer of bureaucracy or a whole new government agency, for example. I do believe that it is time to consider fortification of the U.S. Capitol grounds. For the longest time, we have regarded the Capitol as the people's house, where in my lifetime, in the mid-'60s, when I was a little boy, my father would take me and my sister to a tour of the Capitol, and we're able to drive right up on the Eastern Front, public parking back then. After 9/11, we put in a visitor center, which is underground, but we haven't put that fence in yet. And it's probably time to do that. It's the people's house, but you need a basic perimeter around the grounds to secure the grounds, which can be amplified, intensified at high security events.
This last question, because we're kind of out of time now. Do you anticipate any resurrection of a bipartisan commission to investigate this coming off of this report that seems to scream out that you need one?
My answer, reluctantly, is no. I don't believe that there will be a renewed effort at a January 6th commission. I think that is highly regrettable. The Republicans in the Senate have blocked it. I do not see it. I do not see a renewed effort here, unfortunately.
Secretary Johnson, thank you so much for your time, sir. I really appreciate it.